welcome to Purple Cloud Summit. Thank you for our amazing panelists be here and for our millions listening online. Some incredible speakers and content today. I'm Luke Tucker, head of marketing here at Lightspin, and I'm going to now turn it over to our amazing panelists, including our awesome moderator, Tanya Janko. So please give them a hand for this awesome session. Thank you, guys.
So any one of you can answer this question, okay? What is DevSecOps to you, besides a marketing term?
I think there is some concept of marketing term here, but the approach and the angle is that as we see more and more people moving to be, the ownership is moving to be more on the shifting left, the left side, the developers and the DevOps side. You see more and more people starting to be, as an owner of some domain, become to be also the owners of the security of the same domain. So I see that allows us people to become to be a DevSecOps people who are responsible not only for the infrastructures, but also for the security infrastructures of the organization. It's a challenge. It's a challenge to manage to build good Amazon infrastructure or Azure or Google Cloud, or to implement the right things in place, or think about Kubernetes, which means how do you implement even the basics, best practices in place. So that's part of the same story we define and call DevSecOps in my personal approach.
In my opinion, like, software development have changed significantly over the past, let's say, 20 years and more, and continue to change and to become much, much more agile. And if previously we had a waterfall process where at the end we will evaluate security, now when we release code and product development every day, and sometimes multiple times a day, you cannot put the security at the end. So just like any factory, if you have a bottleneck or something that is super important, do it first. So what we see is basically shift left and basically creating a shared ownership between not only development and operations, but also include security as integrated part of that development cycle, and making sure that you think about security from the initial step, and that's what we call shift left.
Ravi, did you want to add more?
I'd love to add as well. I'm Ravi Srinivasan, CEO of Atiro. To me, the DevSecOps is a way, I love the analysts in marketing, everybody tries to use it. I'd like to put a finer point on security management designed into the development process. We've all been used to incorporating security capabilities like identity, monitoring, scanning, all that is security enforcement and functionality. But now I think for us, I'd love to start seeing DevSecOps used to incorporate security management so that you could actually introduce your managed security capabilities out into the market.
Awesome. So I just realized I forgot to let everyone introduce themselves. So Ravi, would you speak a little bit more and tell them who you are, just a little bit, and then we'll go down the line back to me.
Great, thank you. I'm Ravi Srinivasan, CEO of Atiro. We're a content security company. Think of all the places you have to download content, files, and you use them everywhere, right? How do you ensure that that's safe to use, right? That's our mission in life. I've been in security for over 20 years. We've moved well past waterfall to agile development and designing security for the last 10 years. I think to me, DevSecOps is an opportunity to really look at the next phase. How do you truly incorporate security management, as I said?
So nice to meet you, Vlad Sandler. I'm the CEO and the co-founder at Lightspin. Lightspin, we're a next generation platform, cloud security platform, which two main unique value propositions of ability to prioritize and remediate any kind of risk that you have today in your cloud environment, from the infrastructure service to Kubernetes, from CI/CD security to runtime in one holistic platform. Enjoy this journey, did it for almost 2.5 years together with my co-founder, Ora Zazar. That's what we do.
Cool.
Hi, everyone. My name is Amit. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Perimeter 81. We are basically building the new firewall, allowing companies from any size to build a secure corporate network as a software over the internet without installing any hardware. Happy to be here today.
Awesome, thank you. I'm Tanya Janka, and I just started at Bright Security, and we make a dynamic application security testing tool that does not suck. And I know that because I helped them design it for a year and a half as their advisor before they acquired my company last month, which was called We Hack Purple, which I founded. And as a result, so we were an AppSec secure coding training company, and all our training's now for free online. So talk to me about that later if you have some devs that are doing things and you're like, oh no, what are you doing? But oh yeah, and I wrote Alice and Bob Learn's application security, and there's a bunch of copies in the lobby, and we're giving them away free. So after, talk to you about books. But I have more questions, okay, guys? So what do the C-suite think about DevSecOps? Like, are they like, that's that weird stuff those devs are doing, or are they like, this is great? Like, can you give me kind of an overview? Any one of you can answer any question. You don't have to do all of them.
Sure. I'll kick it off. From my perspective, I look at DevSecOps as a way to get my capabilities out to the market faster, right? As a way for me to differentiate our offerings, because we sell globally into a lot of different organizations, some into air gaps, some into data centers, they adopt our own public cloud. And as they do that, one of the first set of questions that get asked in the early process of buying the product is security. And so any new feature that gets launched as a marketing activity, if I'm launching a security capability and saying, hey, this is how I've designed in security, since we're selling security services, right? That is a competitive advantage. So I look at this as a way to communicate a level of advantage that we have delivering new features, designed securely, and being able to answer specific questions. Not like the high level, we shifted left and we did a lot of stuff. It's like, who cares? But this new feature that gets launched that is going to be used for some use case is secure because I've done that, incorporated it.
I feel like you're seeing, like, it's the results. It's not what you're doing and the steps that you did. It's like, I'm seeing things get out to my customers faster and they're happier and it's safer. Yeah. Nice. Did you want to add anything? But I have another question, but if you want to add, I'm not going to cut you off.
It was I like it.
Cool. Okay, so what kind of results are we seeing so far from shifting security left, like starting security earlier in the system development lifecycle and employing DevOps or DevSecOps? Does anyone want to talk about any results that they've had besides way, way faster shipping? Is there anything anyone wants to add in the results category?
I can give some cool example we saw. It's our favorite stories. In one of our customers, the security engineer, he like saw the results. That's all I need to fix, and if I will do that, I can go to the HR to ask for get more salary. And I think it's a cool story that we really like in the company. We have a lot of jokes about it, is because when you go more on the shifting left, the biggest advantage is that, think about it, that deployment done. It doesn't matter if it's in DevOps or OPSEC. I did a deployment, CISO happy. Now he called some security penetration testing team. They did some assessment, found a bunch of findings, critical or not, we can argue that, right? And then found some strange situation of, okay, you need to fix all these critical findings. And then the developer on the DevOps say, no, I don't, because I have different tasks to do. It's not critical. I think it's medium because it's easier to work like that. And it's a really tough task for CISO. Once we starting to do security early on the process, we can really control the funnel, and we really can control the time to market. And we can find ourselves in situations that if I can affect the problems I see in the build process or in the code process, it's a huge advantage. Imagine that during the build process, I can drop the build once I see critical finding, right? It doesn't matter for the DevOps if I drop the build because of an error, classical error, or just because of severity. For him, it's the same. The build is dropped down, I need to fix until I can do the next deployment. So it's a huge advantage on how I can reduce the time to market and improve actually the results from scalability on the R&D organization. That's at least how I see it.
Cool. Ravi, you're looking really like you want to say more. Do you, or can I go to the next?
No, this is
Okay, cool. So the next question, I'm going to answer it, and then if any of you want to add on, that's cool. But tell me a creative or innovative implementation of DevSecOps. So last year, I was still working at We Hack Purple, but I went full-time onto one of my client site for a few weeks, and I implemented a static application security testing tool. They already had a dynamic one, and I also started doing software composition analysis. And when I spoke to the devs, they explained, we're only allowed running the pipeline once every 2 weeks. We're not doing a true DevOps, right? But we do deploy with the pipeline. But we have to go to a meeting and prove we're ready, and then we run the pipeline, and if we fail, it's humiliating. And everyone knows because we all run it on the same day, which makes no sense, and that's okay, right? That's what they're doing. I'm gonna fit what I'm doing into what they're doing. And so I was like, hey, if you want, I could scan everything the moment you check it into the pipeline. And then I could send just your team what you did wrong. You could fix it, and every time you check it in, it'll test it. And then by the time, 2 weeks from now on Friday, when it runs, you already know you're gonna pass. And so we started doing that, and they started looking good, and they're like, that security person's not so mean, this is awesome. And then I was like, what if we could go faster than that? So I got this thing called OWASP Defect Dojo, which is a free tool from OWASP. And I started feeding the DAST and the SAST and the SCA into it. And so every time you would check in code, it would run SAST and SCA. And then, honestly, only every week, it would run a dynamic scan. And then I'd have that stuff go into Defect Dojo, and I was like, you know, these apps are allowed to have some highs, these apps are only allowed mediums and lows, and basically they got, how do I do this? Is it thumbs up from security or thumbs down? And so in the pipeline, it wouldn't even call all these tools and run them anymore, it would just go to Defect Dojo. Did they pass or fail, dude? And so then they started passing even more, and I finally got the dynamic scans as part of the pipeline, and just basically it stopped being such a giant flaming dumpster fire, and the devs were actually happy and wanted to speak to me, and it was awesome because devs get a lot of bad experiences. Do any of you have an implementation story of anything that you thought was good, like where after the devs were happy, or after your customers were happy, or after just you were happy, like from a security perspective?
We have a lot of this case. I mean, it's a startup. Every day you discover a new problem and you just see how you figure it out. That every time we hear customer come with some problem, I think that maybe the most coolest one is actually integration to competitor. We had a situation that a company used one of our competitors' Docker scanning solutions, which is pretty noisy. And they told us, listen, we want to see how we can integrate to that to prioritize the noise. They give us like 10,000 alerts, and you say that you can prioritize, so prioritize them for us. And we discovered it's a pretty cool thing to do, so we really can integrate to a lot of different scanners nowadays, thanks for this approach, because we discovered that customers looking for aggregation from a lot of solutions, so it's also allowed us better understand the market.
Prioritization is so important. Emmett, no, sorry.
Yeah, I will add to that. Like, I think implementation, if we discuss about implementing DevSecOps within the organization, it requires, I would believe, not only like the right tools and mindset, but also the cultural change. And as everything that was successful, when I'm talking about having our customer, like any successful project that is implemented within the organization, came from a personal ownership of the team, and I think it connects also for having a successful DevSecOps implementation within an organization is to have your team owning it from end to end and give him all the empowerment that he needs to do that. So this is also connects to the culture changes and basically the fact that you need all the relevant stakeholders to be part of that journey from DevOps to DevSecOps and take full ownership on that, whether they succeed or fail. And this is where we see internally in Perimeter 81 projects that are usually the most successful.
So he really set up my next question, and I didn't ask him to, but where do we start? So let's say we're working somewhere and they're kind of doing some DevOps, they're definitely not doing the security things that you are hoping they do. What's something we could do to start?
Yeah, I can kick it off. I mean, if you look at development teams, they're under time crunch to get things out the door, right? And it's always, now that we've incorporated operations as part of development, right? They want to get it up and running, and for what? For the end customer to start using it, right? So I'd love for us to start thinking about security not as a non-functional requirement, but more like a functional requirement. If you think of security as a functional requirement, closer to operations, right? Then that's a great starting point. Then you're releasing a feature that's going to operate, and as part of the operation, it's going to be secure too, right? Not wait for the security person to come and say, yep, you're cleared to go, right? That old way of cleared to go was treating security as a non-functional requirement. So what we did in our organization is the VP of engineering set up the development pipeline and said, you know what, we're going to release features by use cases. And as part of those use case releases, we're going to be looking at security. And it's become easier in some sense for us because we're relying heavily on the cloud security providers, or cloud providers, to provide the basic hygiene pieces, right? So we're not worrying about thanks to companies like Amit's companies, we're not worried about how do we prevent attacks happening on the applications, right? So now we can focus more on the functional aspects of the product and start to introduce security as that feature alongside with the other features that your product does.
Cool. I think that sounds good. So you brought another question up. So like so I was a software developer a long time, and then I switched over into security. And first it was waterfall, and then it was agile, and then it was DevOps, and I was like, DevOps is awesome. But I found that DevOps required a lot of cultural change. And so DevSecOps also requires a lot of cultural change. And I wanted to ask about ideas of how we could kind of try to start off that cultural change to have software developers and operations folks thinking about security more often, weaving security through their processes. Any ideas on how we could start doing that?
Well, it's always education. It's always to discuss and talk about it inside the organization. It's, people are changing all the time. People are learning new things. You need to keep post about it, keep talk about it inside the organization. Take care that people have a chance to go to events or to trainings. I think it's also a good way to keep your team be more healthy and experienced. That's my opinion.
Nice, I like it. Does anyone else want to add on to that? Because otherwise I will. I will talk all day, Ravi.
No, I'd love to add one. I think one of the things that we're starting to implement, but not yet there, is sort of a rotation program, right? Of being able to help developers rotate to doing ops work, developments rotate to doing security work. Because the skill set required now is very similar. It's not like some expert from the outside is going to come and magically tell you how to secure your offering, really. Because the offering is there, and it's going to be tightly integrated. So we're starting to think about implementing a rotation program so people try out different things, right? I did development one agile cycle, and then I'm going to go off and do ops for some time to learn actually what customers are telling us, to then do the same thing with security as well.
Job shadowing. That's so cool. I haven't heard that before, but I actually really like it. That's actually how I got started a bit in security. Like, I was interested in security, but then there was a security incident with a piece of software. And I was like, can I just sit in and watch? Right. And then from the back of the room, because I wasn't even allowed sitting at the real table, because I was an observer, I was like, oh, that's code. Oh, I can read it. Oh, that's bad. And then I became part of the incident response team. And then before you know it, they were teaching me about how to manage incidents, et cetera, and it got me interested. I found another way, because I have run many AppSec programs now and helped people launch many. And one of the ways is telling them what's happening in the security team. So, we had 26 incidents to do with insecure software, or, these things not being patched resulted in this, or, how you disabled that web filter, and then you did this. Well, then, a keylogger got installed, and then this happened, and this person's personal bank account got exploited, or whatever. And I know we can't share all the secrets. I totally get it. I know you're all thinking if I tell everyone the secrets, I'll get fired. But there are some secrets we can share. Everything doesn't have to be top secret in a vault. And it can really get buy-in from other teams if they understand how them not following a security policy can harm your customers or your employees or even your family, right? That's great, Rafi. Okay, so I have a question. This is you, Emmett. If you could change one thing in the cloud, like anything you wanted in the cloud, and I want us to all answer this, what would it be?
I think that I would look at it on the security perspective side, right? I think the biggest problem with cloud is that the fact that it has a large attack surface. It's basically available to the public internet, and attackers can come and start and exploit different CVEs or security vulnerabilities you have inside your code or application. And the fact that if I could basically in one click will be able to map all the resources that are available to the public internet and basically reduce the attack surface significantly, I will definitely integrate that. And this is basically something that connects also to what we do in order to, because it's not possible in cloud, because you need to configure it, you need to maintain the configuration, you need to always be cautious about what resources are available to the public internet and what not. Perimeter 81, for example, we developed a tool or a solution that basically overlay and enables that. So this is definitely, I believe, the first mitigation step and something that is extremely important, and I'll be happy to see that embedded in cloud later on.
Awesome. And down the line?
I have easier answer. I think I would definitely rephrase the services of Amazon. I'm too tired from this. It's VM, it's not EC2, it's just VM, so make it simple.
I like that.
Yeah, I think for me, the thing is, since we are talking about a lot of knowledge gaps, I'd love to see a lot more bite-sized enablement capabilities for development on every aspect of security management, not just security enforcement, but security management as well.
Oh, I like that. I agree with all of you, and I want to add on one thing that is a weird thing, and I haven't seen a solution for it. I want to have it be easier to find all your apps in the cloud and on-prem. I don't know if you've ever worked somewhere and they're like, this app is being attacked, and you're like, that's not on my list. I don't even have a link to it. And then everyone's really upset with you, and I'm like, which dev works on that? Where's the code for that? Oh my gosh. And so so we're getting awesome as an industry at inventory on like virtual machines and containers and stuff like that. So that's good job industry. But we still kind of stink at like making sure we know where all of our APIs are. And oh, we're on API version 3. That's awesome. Did you turn off version 2? And so if we could just have like something that would do inventory. So if you're thinking of starting a startup, if you could just start that for me, that'd be great. And I'm sitting here with 3 founders, aren't I? So yeah, brilliant humans. Thank you, all of you. Thank you very much. And I believe Luke is coming up here to, do we want to do one closing note, or are we like done? Because you're standing there.
We got plenty of time, so
Okay.
feel free to ask more questions. I'd love to be able to take questions from the audience if they have any. So.
Oh yeah.
Take it away.
Does anyone have questions? Yeah, you.
Yeah, I have a question on, great discussion, by the way. Agree with a lot of the points here. In the DevOps world, there is this new 3-letter acronym called SRE, right? What is the panel's take on DevSecOps and SRE interplaying, right? Like, so there's security thrown in with DevOps, right? And shift left, all of that, right? But SRE is like this new incarnation of DevOps, right? Which is more software, like Google started, like there's more software engineers doing DevOps, right? That's one definition of SRE, right? What's the panel take on what would the DevSecOps version of it will be? Will it be software engineers doing security and coin a new term similar to SRE? Like any thoughts on that? Just wanna.
Yeah, I can start and say that at least from my experience, a lot of time when people say SRE, automatically my connotation is like Kubernetes, right? It's more like sub-definition for same DevOps or DevSecOps. I think that we see it also in security, right? You have a director of cloud, head of cloud, cybersecurity, security team leader. I mean, at the end of the day, it's supposed to be the same kind of position. So I see that still the same ownership in same scope. So maybe he can be more focused on some platform or not. But in my personal opinion, at least, he's still a DevOps persona.
What if the S in SRE stood for security, reliability engineering, right? A thing that I do a lot is I try to create security champions within my org, so each team has that person that I always talk to that kind of has the pulse and tells me the problems. And so if we could educate all of them more on how to do their job securely, if we could support them, so for instance, it's like, you guys are doing all these great things, you have these tools, did you know there's a plugin for that does this? Or did you know that if you do it this way, this is better? But I believe SREs are very complementary to security because they focus on everything always being available. And if we go back to the mandate of every security team, it's CIA confidentiality, integrity, and the one that everyone actually cares about, availability. Can people press the purchase button? Can my client check their blood sugar level? Can they do the thing they need to do, right? And so I feel like we're really on the same path, and if we work with them more often, and when I say like train them and teach them, I mean help them be more awesome at their job by including security in everything they do. And also weaving ourselves through their processes. Like when I was telling you before the story about how they would only run the pipeline every second Friday, I think that's weird. I would run it all day long. It's free, like you're paying for Azure DevOps all the time, not just every second Friday, like let's run it. But that's the way they did it. So that's how I had to run my program. And so get them to enlighten us first about what they're doing and then be creative in how we can still like not mess up their stuff, but be more secure and more reliable, which I'm sure they would appreciate. Does anyone else want to add anything? I'm sorry, I talked a lot. I'm really bad, I'll talk the whole time. Does anyone else have any questions? And it could be about cloud, because we're at the Purple Cloud Summit. Oh, I see you.
Hey, so what would you guys say is, you know, we're obviously at RSA, everyone's talking about every security problem in the world. It's probably nothing you haven't heard on the floor, but is there anything you're not hearing people talk about that you expect to be a problem over the next 2, 3, 4 years that it's not on anyone's visibility yet?
Inventory. So there are people talking about inventory, but I haven't seen anyone solve it really well yet. So this sounds like the most boring thing ever, I know, but whenever I come in to do AppSec somewhere, I'm like, do you have a list of all of your apps? And they don't. Do you have a list of all of your APIs and like where the code is, a link to it, and like what team is responsible for it? So if I'm having a problem, I'm not just like, hello, I have a vulnerability and I have like no matching dev team, right? And I feel like inventory, especially because every app is moving towards being a front end with a zillion APIs behind it, and that's gonna be a crazy mess in 10 years. It's already very messy, but it's going to be way, way, way worse as we move to only API backends. And so that's a thing that concerns me. I'm seeing lots of cool like API WAFs or API DAS tools or DAS tools that have adjusted themselves, and that's cool. But I'm like, but where are all my APIs? Could someone please find them for me? I know that sounds stupid, but seriously, if you go into an enterprise, they have thousands of things that they don't know where it is. Does anyone else want to add anything?
Yeah, I can add. I mean, one of the things I'm seeing is there's a lot of conversation. If you go beyond the buzzwords to the next level down, you see a lot of conversations on access and connectivity, right? But not a lot of conversations around content, how to protect content, because it's sort of it seems like an unwritten rule that, oh, content is just the business's problem. They can deal with it. If it gets hacked, whatever, it's their problem, right? I think that's probably where I see the next few years where a lot more focus being put on protecting the organization's lifeblood.
One thing that, in my opinion, people still don't know how to handle is cloud is a big name, right? You have a lot of subdomains, but people don't look on it like in flow. And when I'm looking on vision of how you build an organization right cloud approach, you see the aggregation between actually the funnels that's sitting here from how do you start from your perimeter, right? How do you do the right zero trust authentication or your right access to your perimeter level to how do you move forward to the right posture management in the cloud? How do you do right the content and the incident response once something happened? in one funnel of aggregation between tools. So I think the future is more to see how you take different angles of the stages in your cloud and get from that one chain.
I think that it connects also to what Vladi said, is I would say that now we are focusing as well on connectivity and access and implementing zero trust and so forth, not to make sure the attack surface is small, but we less focus on lateral movement and how can we secure within the cloud our different resources that are not necessarily related and can affect each other. And this, I believe, would become something that people, companies, developers, as well as vendors will develop in the next 3 to 4 years.
So I'm going to be selfish and I'm going to answer again because there's another thing I'm worried about, and that's education. And so I know that I had a training company and we got acquired, so I don't need to sell you anything anymore to do a training. But I want high school students, when they learn how to code, I want them to learn, so hello world, I call it hello insecure world. Because the first thing you do is you learn how to put hello world on the screen. The second thing you learn to do is say, what is your name? In every language, every single time. I've done this a lot of times. And then you get their name from the screen and you reflect it back. There's no input validation, there's no output encoding. 100% of the time that is cross-site script. It's the recipe for cross-site scripting. It's perfect. And I'm like, please stop teaching that lesson. Like, teach them to do that and then teach them about, but what if that user was a bad guy? What if instead of writing Tanya, they write open script tag, blah, 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 blah. Evilness, right? And teaching from that first lesson about security. I want high schools to teach it as, like, if you're going to teach them to put something to the screen, teach them to put something to the screen safely and build that in from the beginning, because high schools aren't teaching it. Universities are almost never teaching it. Colleges are almost never teaching it. And I want that. Imagine if electricians went to school to become an electrician and they're like, yeah, just twist those two wires together and just shove them in the wall. It'll probably be fine. Instead of, you put electrical tape, then you put a moret on it and you twist that too, because otherwise houses would burn down all the time. And literally that's what's happening on the internet right now. There's data breaches every 4 seconds. I get emails from Troy Hunt all the time saying, you've been pwned, Tanya, I'm sorry. And I like Troy, but I don't want those emails from him anymore. And so I feel like if we actually started teaching this in school, like, I don't feel it's acceptable that we have people paying $1 zillion for a computer science degree and it's not covered. Like, right now, they're not learning it.
You know, there is a joke about it that
Okay.
teaching the preschool say, okay, every person in the world have name, and John, the 5-year-old child, stand up and say, it's easy, name and password. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. But I think this needs to change, and people like this can help, but it's our educators as well, and us holding them accountable. Do we have more questions in the audience? Awesome.
So to get back to the whole, DevSecOps topic, and one of the questions was about, how does the business perceive it? So I think over the last few years, as it's become more popular as an industry, we've almost been obsessed with the capability part of DevSecOps. It's like, oh, I got my SCAs and my SAST and my DAST and my IAST and my RASP and all that stuff. So with all that in mind, on outcomes, what are any of your guys' kind of favorite metrics, more of like a tactical perspective? It's like, how do you measure success from a KPI thing? Maybe it's MTTD, maybe it's amount of scans, or even better, on the converse side, what are the KRIs of a DevSecOps programs? It's like, what are we not doing that's actually a bad outcome?
So I'm obsessed with metrics, and I have answers, but I want to, does anyone else want to go for? Okay, so I have a conference talk called Metrics That Matter because I'm obsessed with numbers and data. Okay, so I feel like at first, so whenever I consult somewhere, I'm like, give me all your scans from like the last couple of years, and I just smush them into Excel, and I'm like an Excel ninja. And then I figure out what their top 3 problems are, and then I try to educate on those problems. And 2 of the 3 are always cross-site scripting, and then everyone's allergic to using security headers. I'm like, it's 1 line of code, please. But anyway, so I figure out what their top 3 are, and I start educating on those things, and then I measure again, did that go down, or do we have just as much? Or did I find more bugs, but did anyone fix them? And so I look at a lot of, am I finding new bugs that I didn't find before? And if I am I finding new bugs because I got a cool new tool, and it's nifty, and it's looking in a new way, and it's finding cool stuff that was there the whole time? Or am I finding a new bug? I'm using the same old tool because we are making mistakes still. And then I figure out, do I want to do training with them and workshops with them, or do I have a cool tool that's just more awesome? Like, I don't know if you've ever switched like from one DAS to another DAS, and the other one, it's not that it's crappy, but this one looks in a new way, and you find all the stuff that had been there the whole time. So I do a lot of service level agreements with devs where it's like, I know that your app is 38 years old, and I respect that it is still on the internet, and you have criticals, and you have highs, and you have lows. Those, I'm going to give you 6 months for your criticals. But if you put a new critical and you try to publish that, like, no, we're not friends now, right? And so it's like, you can't be creating new high-intensity bugs. I also try to look at incidents. So when you do AppSec, you're an incident responder, even if your resume doesn't say it, because every time there's a software incident, they're like, so Tanya, and then before you know it, you're like doing the whole thing, because incident responders usually, they're like awesome at malware, ransomware, all those things, right? So for incidents, it's like, am I having the same type of security incident over and over again? When I have the security incident, did everyone follow the process, or was there some person who did not follow the process, or who did not follow need to know and told everyone? Did they follow the process correctly? Did they tell me about the incident quickly, or did some person mess up ruin the chain of custody so I can't press charges or sue or whatever? And so it's like, did everything go the way it's supposed to? Like, I was there at 3 in the morning. Did I have access to that tool that I needed so I could look through the logs, or was I looking through it in text edit and hating my life? And so I try to go through all of those things every 90 days to see, like, am I repeating the same mistakes? Because it really sucks to 6 months later, it's 3 a.m. and you're still opening it in text edit, and it takes 15 minutes to open this like 15 gig file, and your computer's crashing, and you're like, I just need to see what happened. So re-examining your incidents, because that's crazy expensive, I think is really important. And then just with bugs, you have to interpret the data. So I'm finding new bugs. Why am I finding new bugs? Is it a cool new tool, or is it that we hired a new dev that is very YOLO about their code? And so, yeah, I try to do that. I also have like a PDF download I could send you of a list of all those, because I'm really into metrics. My favorite question. Does anyone else want to add metrics or data or things like that you look for, or that interest you, or that you wish your tools would say? No. Nope. I'm sorry, I'm like really obsessive. I didn't mean to take everyone's answers. Does anyone else have any questions? And they can be about purple clouds. Okay, so I have one more question, and then we're going to wrap up. What is it like to found or lead a startup? And I'd like to start at the end, if that's okay, Ravi, but like, what is it like to?
Sure. I mean, my story is a little different. The founder is in the audience. I joined Votiro as a professional leader to help grow the company. So I'm a little bit different. But looking at the opportunities today, right? Applying security not as a non-functional requirement, but using it as a functional requirement is, for me, pretty exciting. Because then I can start to explain to companies that what we offer is a differentiated solution, and we're able to quickly answer those questions of, here's how we did it, right? We delivered a service, and it's secure, and it does this performance, and it does scale, and all of the good stuff. So I think, for me, this conversation here at RSA is enlightening, because for us, we're always looking at what next, right? What next can we solve, how to solve that, and so this is a wonderful opportunity, so thank you.
Awesome.
Well, first of all, it's a cool journey. It's a tough journey, but it's a pretty cool journey. I really enjoyed it. We started it because we had a problem that we tried to solve. Our own problems that we hate this problem. And we knew what to do, but we couldn't do it on scale. And we just decided that it's the perfect time, leave everything and open a company when the COVID hit. No, yeah, it wasn't, to the end I said it was a good timing, but then it was like, we're crazy, what are we doing to ourselves? But it was a really good experience. I think that the timing was perfect because it was easier to find employees, it was easier to find office, and the most important thing, everyone started to use Zoom, so you could get more conversations in less time and be more scalable. I think beside it, it's pretty cool to see that something that you suffer from, you see that others also, and you brought some solutions that can help them to solve it. So big believers in value-oriented sales, so it's pretty cool to see how we help someone to reduce the same problem we suffering from.
I think it's being like on a roller coaster, like every day, right? You wake up, you're going to bankrupt, you go to sleep, you're a unicorn. So that's the day, every day. So it's good and bad, but we enjoy. And more importantly, I'm very grateful for all the people that are next to me and working with me day and night. And that's eventually what matters. Like the people beside you is who are really creating the reality.
All of those answers are awesome. So when I founded my company, it also was right when COVID hit. I announced at RSA 2020, my big, awesome training company, and I had contracts until November of that year to fly around the world and train everyone. And then I came back from San Francisco with a distinct cough and ended up in quarantine for 2 weeks. But I didn't have COVID. I just apparently had the flu, which was, yes. But all my things got canceled, and it's like, what am I gonna do? And then it was a chance to be innovative, because I was hoping to do training at first in person and then switch into doing on-demand things, and I'm like, well, I guess since I'm not allowed out of my house and I'm afraid of other humans, I'm gonna record courses, and I'm gonna go digital faster, and I'm gonna build my community faster. And I ended up being able to reach thousands and thousands instead of hundreds, right? And I was able to then, I guess, turn it into a company that someone actually wanted to buy, because not very many people want to buy one trainer. Being able to buy, like, thousands and thousands of people in a community or hundreds and hundreds of hours of videos is different than, like, you work for us now. But it also meant I could help people. So, like, partway through, we started a diversity scholarship, and we put 100 women of color through our entire program and started getting them application security engineering jobs. And that's like a magical thing I could not have done without being able to lead a company to do it. And so, yeah, it's a tireless job. Like you go to bed and you're like, the entire world is on these shoulders, but you wake up and you're a unicorn every day. I like it. I'm gonna say that from now on. Thank you everyone so much for coming, and thank you to the Purple Cloud Security Summit and Lightspin for having us. And we'll see you all throughout the day.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. Give another round of applause as they exit the stage.